The cheapest Range Rover in the UK is back, and yes, I'm still amazed you can watch live TV in it. But today I'm hoping to make even more progress on it. Now, in the last video, we managed to get a fair amount done, including aligning the boot back up so it closed out of its own accord, and it just about lines up now. Only this side still needs a little bit of adjustment. I managed to change both of these doors despite having a few issues here and there. There's still a bit of work to do to them though. This door handle is not the same as this door handle, so we've got to switch it off the old door. And also, as usual, the alignment isn't too great. This door is slightly lower than this door, and this door, well, that's where the issue started.
Hand on the game, we are not playing the same. No, we not looking to change. Hand on the wheel.
Now, we sort of gathered by now that the Range Rover has been rolled. Well, it's been half rolled into a ditch, and most of the damage being on this passenger side. And after fitting a new door to it, well, this door is closed, yet it still looks open.
Got the remote, made it as far as a miracle. Anything less than center.
Now, a lot of you guys have been helping me out in the comments, which I'm so thankful for. And you've been saying that Range Rovers, panel gaps, and door alignments are never normally great from factory anyway. And you know what? You ain't half wrong. I only saw a brand new Range Rover sitting in a car park just a week ago, and well, the doors weren't best aligned. So me being worried about this door alignment here and the door alignment at the back maybe isn't as bad as I first thought. But I definitely think we can get it a lot better than it is. But as for this is definitely not right. Now, the response to the Range Rover content has been absolutely unreal, and I can't thank every single one of you enough, because it feels like we're all rebuilding this together. The problem is we have experts in the comment section, and then people who think they're experts. And to be honest, it's pretty difficult to work out who is and who isn't. So instead, you've got me, and as you know, I'm not a mechanic, I learn as I go along. So I will make mistakes, but I still can't thank you guys enough for trying to help me out on this. But with that said, there's plenty to get on with, including replacing the dashboard because of this airbag. So let's get this in the unit. So we'll go back to that door later on in the video, but if you remember from the very first video of the Range Rover, there was damage to this driver's side suspension. The inner tie rod had actually popped out. I managed to pop it back in for the meantime, but it's definitely not safe to leave it that way. If you look behind the boot here, you can see the little ball joint which pops into the tie rod. So I marked the track rod with a bit of Tipp-Ex just so I roughly know where it goes, but more than likely the tracking is going to be way out on this Range Rover after the crash. Then I could undo it from the steering rack side and then also the track rod end side.
Digging our heads up, wondering when the well went dry, asking where it all went.
Now that Tipp-Ex mark should just give me a rough area of where I should adjust the new inner tie rod to, so I can get it just about right. And with the rubber boot and the bolt switched over onto the new inner tie rod, I can start bolting it on to the car. Trying to get it roughly where the old one was, but yes, this car would definitely need to be tracked. There's plenty more issues on this driver's side front end, including this intercooler, which is wobbling around all over the place. The intercooler actually seems okay, but the brackets around it are absolutely battered. But we'll address that again later in the video. Now I can move on to the door handle. This door handle, which came with this front door, is completely different to the other door handles on the car. So I'm going to switch it over from the old one. Pretty easy job to do. There's just a little grommet on the inside of the door, and then you can access a T30 bolt in there. You don't want to unscrew it all the way out though, because the bolt may fall inside the door and then you're in trouble. Just loosening it off will be enough just to pull the door handle out and then pop the new one, well, the old one, back in.
At the time, they're making...
Now I've got to move the C63 out of the way, and here's me wondering why the front indicator is not working. But again, that's going to have to be another video. Airbags. Now, a lot of people get put off when buying crash damaged cars if the airbags are gone. And that's because most of the time you need to replace the full dashboard as long as the steering wheel airbag, and sometimes, like in this case, the seat belts as well, because, well, they lock out like this. Luckily on the Range Rover, no curtain airbags have gone off. They usually go off if it's a side impact, although this was a side impact because it rolled on the side, but the curtain airbags haven't gone off, so that's lucky. Now maybe you're thinking, I would never buy a car where the airbags have been deployed, it's unsafe. But what if I told you you could be driving a car where the the airbags had been deployed and you don't even know it?
Well, how would I find out?
Well, that's easy. You could use a simple tool called Car Vertical, who have sponsored today's video. Car Vertical currently works in over 20 different countries. It gathers data from car insurances, car crash auction websites, and, well, loads more. It can help you find out whether the car that you're looking to buy or the car that you've already bought is as straight as it looks. Check this out. So when you pop in your registration or VIN number into Car Vertical, this is what you should expect. Here's a check that I did for an Audi R8. As you can see, there's no mileage fraud, it's not been reported as stolen, and it's not been used as a taxi, but there is an amber light for an accident. When I scroll down the report, I can see all the MOT history whenever a plate's been changed, and I can see that the damage was actually recorded in May 2020. As I scroll down further on the report, I can see all the mileage all lines up, I can see whether there's any outstanding finance, and the biggie, the damage. In this case, I can actually see the photos of the damage from the car crash auction website when it was auctioned off. It looks pretty bad. But just to show you what a good report looks like, here's a report on my Lamborghini Gallardo. You can see all the lights at the top are all green, there's no mileage fraud, it's not been recorded as stolen, and there's no accidents as well. So to check your car out, or a car that you're potentially about to buy, you can click the link in the description box below to do a Car Vertical check, and with that link, you're going to save yourself a nice bit of cash as well. Thanks, Car Vertical. Airbags. The steering wheel airbag, not so bad. The passenger side airbag, bad. Making it one of the most labour intrusive jobs you can do, as the whole dashboard has got to be replaced. Now, before replacing any dashboard, I like to take out both front seats just to give me a little bit more room. You can see both the bolts here at the front, and there's two more at the back with a load of electrical connectors underneath. The front seat belts are actually bolted to the seats on this model, so they will have to be removed before the seats come out as well. But for some reason, during this accident, the front seat belts didn't lock out, which is good for me, really. With the seats out, we are now ready to tackle the dashboard. So the seats are out, ready to attack the dashboard now, which could be easy or it could be slightly difficult. So the only sort of cheat code to this is to buy the dashboard before, that way I can see where all the little bolt holes are, so I know where to expect them on that dashboard. And as I mentioned, I've never done one on a Range Rover, and by the looks of it, there are bolt holes absolutely everywhere, so God knows how this is going to go. Another thing that you may notice is that I have a cream or whitey coloured airbag for the steering wheel, and the one that's in the car, well, it's black. And that's because finding an airbag kit with all black dashboard and an all black airbag was actually really difficult, and the cheapest one that I actually could find was about £900, whereas the one that I actually got was £400, and that was for the dashboard and the steering wheel airbag. The only thing that I'm missing is the seat belts, but I'm just putting this off now. Let's crack on with stripping the dashboard.
She want me to lock it down, but I told her to pass the key.
Now, whilst we're replacing the dashboard, we're going to be doing some upgrades as well, but first we need to get the old dashboard out. First off, we need to remove the steering wheel airbag by poking a little screwdriver in the hole, which will release the airbag from the steering wheel. And then there's just a few connectors on the back, which, well, I had a lot of trouble getting these off. They seem to have almost melted to the steering wheel, and I ended up having to break them out. But with the airbag out, there's just one bolt to undo the steering wheel now, and then I can start attacking the steering column. We need to get the clock spring off with the indicator stalk and the wiper stalk, as the dashboard won't lift over that when we're removing it. Now, with this car being fairly new and having loads of technology in it, there is tons of electrical connectors and so many bolts in places that you wouldn't even imagine. And it was just a case of working out where all the bolts were located. But finally I managed to gain access to the two bolts which hold the clock spring to the steering column, and now I can slide that off the steering column. There's a few more bolts holding in the digital display and a lot of electrical connectors at the back, and the same for the head unit and the climate control. Now, normally I disconnect the battery when doing this, but you'll see why I had to keep the battery connected in a minute. Now, on the passenger side, I removed some trim to reveal some loose wires, which looked like there used to be a dash cam in the car or some sort. I'd love to see the footage of when it got crashed. Now, to open the glove box on the car, it's electronically controlled with a switch, so if I disconnect the battery, I wouldn't have been able to open it, and I wouldn't have been able to access some of the bolts. And believe me, there was a lot of bolts. But once I got the glove box out, and there was sort of two glove boxes, a lower one and an upper one, it revealed the main bolts which hold the dashboard to the actual body of the car. And most of them were pretty easy and straightforward to access, apart from two, which were right at the back of the dashboard, and the windscreen was kind of in the way of getting my ratchet in. You can see me climb out here just to have another second look at where those bolts were. I eventually managed to get the ratchet in there and remove those two bolts, and finally get the dashboard out of the car. So, I think I'm gonna need counselling after this one, because this is definitely the worst dashboard that I've ever had to pull out. There was bolts where there shouldn't be bolts, even worse than the Audi that we did. So everything went okay apart from the airbag, of course, and these clips, well, they just look like they've almost melted into the back of the airbag, and I had no other choice just to break them and get them out. And even if you look at the new one here, it looks a similar sort of story. This is it's really corroded as well. Now, there was a serious amount of bolts, but actually, looking at it, it's not too hard to work out what bolts go where. There's only really three types of bolt. You've got this bolt here, the 10mm, which actually held the dashboard to the frame of the car. You've got this part here, which held like all the electrical connectors, all the trims, and then this T30 here, which held pretty much everything else. Oh, and also, we've got a little upgrade to do as well whilst we're there, but we'll get onto that. So we're on the home straight from now, putting the dashboard back in, getting all the bolts back in and all the electrical connectors back in. I actually find putting the dashboard back in easier than taking it out, because now I know where everything goes and where everything came out. The main rule for doing this is make sure you do it all in the same day, else you'll start forgetting where everything went. Okay, so we're nearly there. This has been painful, this dashboard. Probably one of the the worst dashboard that I've ever changed. But now we're on to the upgrades. So this is the air conditioning sort of unit, the control. It powers all the heated seats and everything like that. Now, when they changed the Range Rover to the 2018 model, they actually changed this for a screen kind of like that. And to my surprise, actually, as well, this looks like a proper DIY job. It's literally wood. This is actually wood. It's anyway, that's beside the point. Now, effectively, what's inside this should be plug and play. If I can open it, yes, of a new AC display, which is a full screen, which will replace this one. Hopefully this is plug and play. I'm going to install it now. We'll put everything back together and then we'll test it out. Fingers crossed this works. Let's do it. Now, sometimes aftermarket parts, when they claim to be plug and play, sometimes they're not. But this one literally only had one plug to plug in the back, and we just gotta hope that afterwards it plays. But yeah, this was definitely one of the easiest things to install, and no, you do not have to remove the full dashboard to replace it. That screen on the bottom has really updated the interior. Next up, the steering wheel can go back on, being careful that I put it back on the way it came off. And the cream/whitey coloured airbag, which I can't obviously connect up yet because I don't have the connector, so we'll just rest that in place. Next up, it's the seats. I was expecting the seats to be really heavy, but actually, for how big they are, they weren't too heavy. And there we go, one replaced dashboard and almost finished steering wheel airbag. with the upgraded AC controls. But what do we think of that airbag? Can I get away with that colour? Time check, 11 minutes past 2 in the morning. This definitely took way longer than I expected, but look at it. Isn't that just satisfying? I am battered, and this is absolutely battered me. What are we thinking though of the cream airbag on the steering wheel? I'm not so sure. I don't actually think it looks out of place with the sort of light roof lining that we got going on, but I don't know, maybe it will look better blacked out. I'm pretty sure you can get these coloured, or we may have to buy a new one, and the black ones are a lot more expensive than the cream ones for some reason. But let me show you this. Let's turn it on. Check this out. We've got the screen at the top as usual, and now the screen at the bottom. How much more modern does that look? We can control the climate control, we can control the heated seats, not sure what that is, and the rear climate control and the rear heated seats as well. And these are the twisty little knob things, but that is looking a lot better. But as you guys may have seen, the job is not 100% complete yet.
Don't look back. My mama always used to say you'll find another. Endless love is coming, I'll be sure of that. But it's so hard, 'cause it's you, always on my mind. It's you, taking all my time. Let it sink in. Haven't you been hurting enough?
You know what? The more I look at it, the more I think I'm gonna need to get a black airbag. I don't know, I'm kind of going off it now. But yeah, as I mentioned, we're still not completely done in here because we do need these rear seat belts because they're completely locked out. And of course, these airbag connectors, which means that with both of them, we're still gonna have this airbag light pop on the dashboard. Now, I did mention that will pop back with the door situation, and some of you have left a few suggestions. So a few of you have mentioned that maybe this door has came from a different model Range Rover. Well, actually it's came from a 2018 model Range Rover. But I can assure you the doors and the arches are exactly the same, so it should just bolt on, no problem. The other theory is that this door could be bent or twisted, but it seems to all line up at the top and line up all here as well. There's no other issues with it apart from this part here, so I can't see it being bent or twisted. Now, I've had a little play around with the hinges on both doors and got them to sort of the best I could get them, and it is a lot better. The line on the bonnet lines all the way along here into this door now and continues on to here. So the panel lines all do line up, and now you can see that the door is just about, well, pretty much bang on throughout the whole of the car. It is literally just this part here, and to be honest, instead of buying a full new rear quarter, I'm pretty sure a body shop could pull that out. Which then leads me on to the problems with the intercooler and the brackets behind the bumper. But I've definitely ran out of time today to take a look at that. Now, just before you go, if you're new to the channel, every time we change a dashboard on here, we get a score out of 10. 10 out of 10 being the best score possible with 0 bolts being left over. And you lose 1 point for every bolt you have left over. We've never had a 10 out of 10 score, and today, we've got the worst score. I have somehow 7 bolts left over. That gives this dashboard change a 3 out of 10. If you've enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.